Alrighty, my beautiful class. Today, can somebody tell me what we're doing? Percents of change. So we're still sticking with the theme of percents. Except this is a very short little lesson in which you learn how to solve it. You learn how to solve percent of change questions. And then you put that in your memory bank. You put that in the far reaches in your brain. And then when you happen to see that question, you bring it out. It's one of those that you can't really, you can implement it in other types of math or in other word problems. But for the most part, percent of change questions are its own little question. It'll literally just be, what is the percent of change of Neil's blah, 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 and blah, 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 right? They'll give you a word problem, which we'll see an example of. But it's its own little lesson. Not really much with what we've done yesterday or the day before. But it's part of percents. And you have to be aware of a percent of change question versus what we did yesterday, a percent proportion question. So if we begin, can I pull it up? Let's see if I even have one. Okay, this is a good one. Oh no. But now we're back alive. So now back to professionalism. So let's read this word problem. Before her raise, Lisa earned $10.50 per hour. Now she earns $11.34 per hour. What percent raise did her boss give her? Okay. So, first things first. This is a word problem. And they're asking for the percent. So Neil, how is this any different from yesterday's stuff? What is the difference? The difference between this type of percent word problem versus the ones we were doing yesterday is what percent raise, what percent decrease. They'll sometimes just flat out say, what is the percent of change? But this whole percent change or raise or decrease questions is what makes it a percent of change problem. They aren't asking for what percent does her annual money come out to be. They're not asking for the missing number, the missing percent, the missing whatever. They're not asking anything. They just want to know, you went from point A to point B. $10 to $11. They want to know that little increase that you just had in your pay raise. They want to know how much percent increase did you go by. So that's a very unique question because it's a percent of change question, which requires its own little steps to solve. And the steps are 3 measly little steps. And then you officially know how to find percent of change questions. So, let's look at this problem here and just look at this as a first example before we do another example. This is what you're going to do. Step number 1. I'll lay it out for you. Step number 1. Find the difference of the two numbers. Find the difference of the two numbers. Find the difference of the two numbers. So what does that mean? Well, you started with $10.50. You are now making $11.34. What's the difference between the two?
84 cents.
Okay, good. By the way, you could have done that by hand, or again, what are we using this week? Calculator, just to do a quick little $11.34 minus 10.50, and we end up getting, when we do our calculation, we'll get, I think I want to do this on the side. We get 0.84. 0.84, that's what your calculator will say. No, not 84, because that's a whole number. The difference between $10.50 to $11.34 is 0.84. Technically 84 cents. So that's step number 1 always. Find the difference. Step number 2. Divide difference from the original number. What that means is this. What was the number that Lisa, that the company, that the teacher, whatever the person or thing is in the word problem, they started out at an original number. What was the original number that in this case Lisa started off with?
10.50.
So what you do is you divide the difference, 0.84, you divide it from
10.5.
the original number, which is 10.5, 10.50, same thing. So, somebody with the trusty old calculator do the calculation. Okay, what's 0.84 divided by 10.50? 10.50.
$0.08.
So when you do this division, we ended up getting 0.08. 0.08, same thing, 0.08. Okay. So step number 3 is this, my friends. The answer that you got from step number 2, you convert to a percent. Do we remember how to convert a decimal to a percent? Do we know how to convert a decimal to a percent?
Don't multiply those two and then add what you need.
No. Although there is something we could do with multiplying, which I was going to show. So there is 2 ways to convert a decimal to a percent. If you recall, yesterday.
One is the whole number.
Yeah, hold up. So yesterday I did go over how to convert a percent to a decimal. Do you remember what it was? It was something about locate the decimal.
Yeah. 2 times.
So in this case, the decimal's here. We move it 2 places, always to the left, and it became 0.25, right? So let's say you're asked to convert a decimal to a percent. My friends, all you're doing is backwards. You're just working backwards. You're still, you locate the decimal, then you move it 2 places, but in this case, to the right. So if you move it to the right, what we end up getting is 25. And then you just slap the percent sign on it. That's one way. That's one way. So if we look at the other example, the 0.08, was it? 0.08. 0.08.
Can we go back to the other
This one?
Yeah. Can you scoot it up and work on that?
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, it was 50.
Yeah, I'll just work on it. Yeah, that's fine. So, 0.08. 0.08. I want to convert it to decimal. Locate the decimal and move it 2 places to the right. So, here's this decimal right there. Move it 2 places to the right. It's right there now. And then slap the percent on it. So, it is 8%. That's one way you can do it. There is a secondary way that I find people, obviously with calculators, love to do. The decimal that they have, after doing step number 2, do me a favor. 0.08, multiply it by 100. And what do we get?
800.
What do we get? 8. Again, 8%. So there's 2 ways to convert a decimal to a percent. Just multiply your decimal by 100, or locate the decimal and move it 2 places to the right.
How did you get the 0.08?
Step number 2, which was dividing the difference from the $10.50 and the $11.34. You divided it by the original number, and always the original number. You divide it by what she started off with, which was 1050, right? So the difference divided by 1050, and your answer from that is 0.08.
Okay.
And then again, once you that answer from step number 2, which was 0.08, you either move the decimal to the right 2 places, and 2 places always, or times by 100. And then whatever answer you get from doing either of those 2 methods, slap a percent on it. And guess what? Now you could say, hey, the pay raise that I was given, man, it went up by 8%. You get to say that in a conversation, and you get to sound smart because you included percents in your conversation. Isn't that what we always want to do? Is act smart in front of people? That's why I became a math teacher. I ain't smart, I just wanted to act smart. So let's do another example, obviously. Do I have this one under file? I might not. So I'll try to write it out. Watch me write. So this one is a tricky one. But let's try to memorize our steps. What's step number 1 always? Can somebody just say the exact step word for word that I've written before? What is it? Step number 1. Yeah, find the difference of your 2 numbers, right? That's always your safe thing to do always. So what's the difference between the 2 numbers? $30, right? Can somebody tell me word for word? What was step number 2?
Divided by the...
That's a class. Don't be scared. Everybody at the same time.
Divide the difference from the original.
Divide the difference by the original number. This right here, step number 2, is the critical part. If you divide by the original number, what's the original number? 120. You'd be surprised how many times, because of the word problem, because of the way it's laid out, because of the way it's said, that the students will put $90 below the 30. Because either A, they were reading quick and they just saw that 90 was the first number that came first, and they just get it and they throw it in, right? Or they just, just had a brain fart, just didn't really read it that carefully. But look carefully. A jacket is on sale for $90. It was on sale for $120 3 days ago, whatever, a week ago. It doesn't matter. The original price that the jacket was on was $120. That was the original price. Now it's at $90. So 120 should be the one that you divide your difference by. So you do on the calculator 30 divided by 120. What do we get?
20.25.
0.25. Now, can somebody tell me word for word what step number 3 is?
Move the decimal. Or
Answer.
find the percentage.
Convert your decimal to a percent. You either do that by moving it 2 places or times it by 100. Whatever the case, whatever method you decide at that point, you're going to get the right answer, which is 25%. It went down by 25%. How much did you save on that jacket? 25% from the original listing. This could actually percents and proportions and ratios. This week, all this week's lessons is something that you could truly apply into the real world. That's why I like teaching this week's lessons. You could apply it all into real life. Do this method next time, Black Friday, when Black Friday is approaching, right? And you're about to go buy that 4K TV, and it's on Costco for $9.99, and the next thing you know, Black Friday comes and you see it for $8.49. That's actually too little. You see it for $7.49. Do the calculations. Just see how much it went down by percentage-wise. It'll kind of a nice thing to see and do. You could apply it to the real world. Any questions so far? Do we have our 3 steps down? Do we have it down to a T? Yes.
On the last line, what's after percent?
Decrease.
Okay.
My apologies. I really.
Wow.
Okay.